Hello. Welcome to my channel, Booktube. Shahnameh, the Epic of Kings. By Hakim Abol Qasem Ferdowsi Tousi. Translated by Helen Zimmern. Chapter 4, Zal and Rodabeh. Anon it came about that Zal desired to see the kingdom. And he set forth, and there followed after him a goodly train, and when they had journeyed a while they marched with pomp into Abol. Now Merab, who was descended from Zohak the serpent, reigned in Abol, yet he was worthy, prudent, and wise. When he heard that the son of Sam, to whom he paid tribute, drew nigh unto the city, he went out to meet him, and his nobles went with him, and slaves bearing costly gifts. And Zal, hearing that Merab was at hand, prepared a feast in his tents, and Merab and his train feasted with him until the night was far spent. Now, after the king was gone, Zal praised his beauty. Then a noble rose up and said unto him, O Zal, thou knowest not beauty since thou hast not beheld the daughter of this man. For she is like unto the slender cypress, her face is brighter than the sun, her mouth is a pomegranate flower. When Zal heard these words he was filled with longing, and sleep would not visit his eyelids for thinking of her beauty. Now, when the day dawned, he opened the doors of his court, and the nobles stood about him, each man according to his rank. And presently there came from Abol Merab the king to tender morning greeting to the stranger without his gates. And Zal desired that Merab should crave a boon at his hands. Then spake Merab unto him saying, O ruler mighty and great, I have but one desire, and to bring it to pass is easy. For I crave thee that thou dwell as guest beneath my roof, and let my heart rejoice in thy presence. Then Zal said unto him, O king, ask not this boon at my hands, I pray thee, for it can in no wise be accomplished. The Shah and Sam would be angered should they learn that I had eaten under the roof of Zohak. I beg of thee ask aught but this. When Merab heard these words he was sorrowful, and bent low before Zal, and departed from out the tents. And the eye of Zal looked after him, and yet again he spake his praises. Then he bethought him of the king's daughter, and how that she was fair, and he was sunk in brooding and desire, and the days passed unheeded over his head. Now it came to pass that on a certain morning Merab stepped forth from his palace to the house of the women to visit Sindikt his wife, and her daughter Rodabeh. Truly the house was like to a garden for color and perfume, and over all shone those moons of beauty. Now when Merab had greeted Rodabeh he marveled at her loveliness, and called down the blessings of heaven upon her head. Then Sindikt opened her lips and questioned Merab concerning the stranger whose tents were without their gates. And she said, I pray thee tell unto me what manner of man is this white-haired son of Sam, and is he worthy the nest or the throne? Then Merab said unto her, O my fair cypress, the son of Sam is a hero among men. His heart is like unto a lion's, his strength is as an elephant's, to his friends he is a gracious Nile, unto his enemies a wasting crocodile. And in him are even blemishes turned to beauties, his white locks but enhance his glory. When Rodabeh had listened to these words her heart burned with love for Zal, so that she could neither eat nor rest, and was like unto one that hath changed her shape. And after a while, because that she could bear the burden thereof no longer, she told her secret to the slaves that loved and served her. And she charged them tell no man, and entreated of them that they would aid her to allay the troubles of her heart. And when the slaves had listened to her story, they were filled with fear, and with one accord entreated her that she would dismiss from her heart one branded among men, and whom his own father had cast out. But Rodabeh would not listen to their voice. And when they beheld that she was firm in her spirit, and that their words were vain, they cast about how they might serve her. And one among them who was wise above the rest opened her lips and spake, O moon-faced beauty, slender cypress, it shall be done at thy desire. Thy slaves will neither rest nor slumber until the royal youth shall have become the footstool to thy feet. Then Rodabeh was glad and said, And the issue be happy, there shall be planted for thee a noble tree, and it shall bear riches and jewels, and wisdom shall cull its fruits. Then the slaves pondered in their hearts how they should compass their end, for they knew that only by craft could it be brought about. Straightway they clothed themselves in costly raiment, and went forth blithely into the garden of flowers that was spread beside the river's bank without the city. And they gathered roses, and decked their hair with blossoms, and threw them into the stream for sooth-telling, and as they gathered they came unto the spot over against which were pitched the tents of Zal. Now Zal beheld them from his tent, and he questioned them concerning these rose-gatherers. And one uprose and said unto him, They are slaves sent forth by the moon of Kabul into the garden of flowers. Now when Zal heard this his heart leaped for joy, and he set forth unto the river's bank with only one page to bear him company. And seeing a water bird fly upwards, he took his bow and shot it through the heart, and it fell among the rose-gatherers. Then Zal bade the boy cross the water and bring him the bird. And when he had landed, the moon-faced women pressed about him and questioned him, saying, O youth, tell us the name of him who aimeth thus surely, for verily he is a king among men. Then the boy answering said, What? Know ye not the son of Sam the hero? The world hath not his equal for strength and beauty. But the girls reproved him, and said, Not so, boast not thus vainly, for the house of Mirav holdeth a sun that o'er shines all besides. And the page smiled, and the smile yet lingered on his lips when he came back to Zal. And Zal said, Why smilest thou, boy? What have they spoken unto thee that thou openest thy lips and showest thy ivory teeth? Then the boy told unto him the speech of the women. And Zal said, Go over yet again and bid them tarry, that they may bear back jewels with their roses. And he chose forth from among his treasures trinkets of pearl and gold, and sent them to the slaves. Then the one who had sworn to serve Rodabeh above the rest craved that she might look upon the face of the hero, for she said, A secret that is known to three is one no longer. And Zal granted her desire, and she told him of Rodabeh and of her beauty, and his passion burned the more. And he spake, Show unto me, I pray thee, the path by which I may behold this fair one, for my heart is filled with longing. Then the slave said, Suffer that we go back to the house of the women, and we will fill the ears of Rodabeh with praises of the son of Sam, and will entangle her in the meshes of our net, and the lion shall rejoice in his chase of the lamb. Then Zal bade her go forth, and the women returned to the house rejoicing and saying, The lion ent'reth the snare spread forth to entrap him, and the wishes of Rodabeh and Zal will be accomplished. But when they were come to the gates the porter chid them that they were gone without while the stranger sojourned in Kabul, and they were troubled and sore afraid for their secret. But they stilled his wrath and came unto where Rodabeh awaited them. And they told her of Zal, the son of Sam, and of his beauty and his prowess. And Rodabeh smiled and said, Wherefore have ye thus changed your note? For a while back ye spake with scorn of this bird-reared youth, on whose head hang the locks of a sage, but now are ye loud in his praises. Then Rodabeh began privily to deck her house that it might be worthy a guest. With brocades of room and carpets of ind did she hang it, and she perfumed it with musk and ambergris, and flowers did she cause to bloom about the rooms. And when the sun was sunk, and the doors of the house were locked and the keys withdrawn, a slave went forth unto Zal, the son of Sam. And she spake unto him in a low voice, Come now, for all is ready. And Zal followed after her. And when they were come to the house of the women Zal beheld the daughter of the king standing upon the roof, and her beauty was like unto a cypress on which the full moon shineth. And when she beheld him, she spake and said, I bid thee welcome, O young man, son of a hero, and may the blessing of heaven rest upon thee. And Zal answered her benizon, and prayed that he might enter into nearer converse, for he was on the ground and she was on the roof. Then the peri-faced loosened her tresses, and they were long, so that they fell from the battlements unto the ground. And she said unto Zal, Here hast thou a cord without flaw. Mount, O Palavah, and seize my black locks, for it is fitting that I should be a snare unto thee. But Zal cried, Not so, O fair one, it would beseem me ill to do thee hurt. And he covered her hair with kisses. Then he called for a cord and made a running knot, and threw it upwards and fastened it to the battlements. And with a bound he swung himself upon the roof. Then Rodabeh took his hand and they stepped down together into the golden chambers, and the slaves stood round about them. And they gazed upon each other and knew that they excelled in beauty, and the hours slipped by in sweet talk, while love was fanned in their hearts. Then Zal cried, "O fair cypress, musk perfumed, when Menukir shall learn of this he will be angered and Sam also will chide. And they will say I have forgotten my God, and will lift their hands against me. But I swear unto thee that this life is to me vile if it be not spent in thy presence. And I call upon heaven to hear me that none other but thee will I call my bride." And Rodabeh said, "I too will swear unto thee this oath." So the hours sped, and there arose from out the tents of the king the sound of drums that announced the coming of the day. Then cried Zal and Rodabeh of one accord, "O glory of the world, tarry yet a while, neither arrive so quickly." But the sun gave no ear to their reproaches, and the hour to part was come. Then Zal swung himself from the battlements unto the ground, and quitted the house of his beloved. Now when the earth was flooded with light, and the nobles and chiefs had tendered unto Zal their morning greetings as was their wont, he called about him his muebids, and laid before them how that he was filled with love for a daughter of the serpent. And the muebids when they heard it were troubled, and their lips were closed, and the words were chained upon their tongues. For there was none of them that listed to mingle poison in the honey of this love. Whereupon Zal reproved them, and said that he would bestow on them rich gifts if they would open their mouths. Then they spake and said unto him that the honor of a king could not suffer by a woman, and though Merab be indeed of Zohak's race, he was noble and valiant. And they urged him to write unto his father and crave Sam to wait upon the Shah. Then Zal called unto him a scribe and bade him write down the words that he spake. And he told unto Sam his love and his fears. And he recalled unto him how that he had cast him out, and how that he had lived in a nest, and a bird had reared him, and the sun had poured down upon his head, and raw flesh had been his nourishment the while his father had sat within a goodly house clothed in silk. And he recalled the promise given to him by Sam. Neither did he seek to justify that which was come about. Then he gave the letter to a messenger, and bade him write until he should be come into the presence of Sam. When Sam had heard the words of his son his spirit was troubled, and he cried, "Woe unto me, for now is clear what hath so long been hidden. One whom a wild bird hath reared looked for the fulfillment of wild desires, and seeks union with an accursed race." And he pondered long what he should answer. For he said, "If I say, abandon this desire, so no discord, return to reason, I break my oath and God will punish me. Yet if I say, thy desire is just, satisfy the passions of thy heart, what offspring can come to pass from the union of a deeb and the nursling of a bird?" And the heart of Sam was heavy with care. So he called unto him his muebids that they should search the stars, for he said, "If I mingle fire and water I do ill, and ill will come of it." Then all that day the wise men searched the secrets of fate, and they cast the horoscope of Zal and Rodabeh, and at even they returned to the king rejoicing. And they found him torn with anguish. Then they said, "Hail unto thee, O Sam, for we have followed the movement of the stars and counted their course, and we have read the message of the skies. And it is written, a clear spring shall issue into the day, a son shall be born to Zal, a hero full of power and glory, and there shall not be his like in Iran." Now when Sam had drunk in these words, his soul was uplifted, and he poured gifts upon the muebids. Then he called to him the messenger of Zal, and he gave him pieces of silver, and bade him return unto his master and say, "I hold thy passion folly, O my son, but because of the oath that I have sworn to thee it shall be done at thy desire. I will hie me unto Iran and lay thy suit before the Shah." Then Sam called together his army and set forth for Iran, and the sound of trumpets and cymbals went before him. Now when the messenger was come back to Zal, he rejoiced and praised God, and gave gold and silver to the poor, and gifts unto his servants. But when night was come he could not close his eyes in slumber, nor could he rest during the day. Neither did he drink wine nor demand the singers, for his soul was filled with longing after his love. And presently there came out to him a slave, and he gave unto her Sam's letter that she might bear it to Rodabeh. And Rodabeh rejoiced also, and chose from among her treasures a costly crown and a ring of worth, and bade the woman bear them unto Zal. Now as she quitted the chamber she met Sindukt. And the queen questioned her and said, Whence comest thou? Reply to all my questions, neither seek thou to deceive me, for already a long time do I suspect thy passing to and fro. And the woman trembled as she heard these words, and fell down and kissed the feet of the queen, and said, Have pity on thine handmaiden, who is poor and gaineth her bread as she can. I go into the houses of the rich and sell to them robes and jewels. And Rodabeh hath this day bought of me a tiara and a bracelet of gold. Then said Sindukt, Show unto me the money thou hast received for the same, that my anger be appeased. And the woman answered and said, Demand not that I show unto thee that which I have not, for Rodabeh will pay me tomorrow. Now Sindukt knew that these words were feigned, and she searched the sleeve of the woman, and lo! She found therein the tiara that Rodabeh had broidered with her hands. Then she was angered, and commanded that the slave should be bound in chains. And she desired that her daughter be brought into her presence. And when she was come, Sindukt opened her mouth and spake, saying, O moon of noble race, to whom hath been taught naught but that which is good, how hast thou gone astray upon the paths of evil? O my daughter, confide unto thy mother thy secrets. From whom cometh this woman? For what man are destined thy gifts? When she had heard, Rodabeh was abashed, but after a while she told all unto Sindukt. Now when the queen had heard she was confounded, for she feared the wrath of the Shah, and that he would raise Kabul to the dust for this mischance. And she went into her rooms and wept in her sorrow. Then presently Mirab the king came in to Sindukt, and he was of joyful mind, for Zal had received him graciously. But when he beheld her tears he questioned of her grief. Then she told him how that his daughter was filled with love for Zal, the son of Sam. And when Mirab had heard her to an end, his heart also was troubled, for he knew that Kabul could not stand before the Shah. Menukir, too, when he had heard these things, was troubled, for he beheld in them the device of Ahriman, and feared lest this union should bring evil upon Iran. And he bade Nader call Sam before him. Now when Sam heard the desire of the Shah, he spake and said, I obey, and the sight of the king will be a banquet unto my soul. Then Sam went into the presence of Menukir, and he kissed the ground, and called down blessings upon the head of the Shah. But Menukir raised him and seated him beside him on the throne, and straightway began to question him concerning the war, and the deeds of Mazandaran. Then Sam told him all the story of his battles. And Menukir listened with joy though the tale was long, and when Sam had ended he praised his prowess. And he lifted his crown unto heaven and rejoiced that his enemies were thus confounded. Then bade a banquet be spread, and all night long the heroes feasted and shortened the hours with wine. But when the first rays of morn had shed their light, the curtains of the Shah's house were opened, that he might hold audience and grant the petitions of his people. And Sam the Pahlava came the first to stand before the king, for he desired to speak to him of Zal. But the Shah of the world would not suffer him to open his lips, but said unto him, Go hence, O Sam, and take with thee thine army, for I command thee to go yet again to battle. Set forth unto Kabul and burn the house of Mirab the king, and utterly destroy his race and all who serve him, nor suffer that any of the seed of Zohak escape destruction, for I will that the earth be delivered of this serpent brood. When Sam heard these words he knew that the Shah was angered, and that speech would avail him naught. So he kissed the throne and touched the earth with his forehead, and said, Lord, I am thy servant, and I obey thy desires. And he departed, and the earth trembled under the stamping of footmen and of hoofs, and the air of the city was darkened with his spears. Now the news of Sam's intent reached even unto Kabul, and the land was sunk in woe, and weeping filled the house of the king. But Zal was wroth, and he went forth to meet his father. and when he was come to the spot where he had encamped his army, he craved an audience. And Sam granted it, and Zal reminded him yet again of his oath, and desired that he would spare the land of Kabul, nor visit his judgments upon the innocent. When Sam had listened, his heart was moved, and he said, O my son, thou speakest that which is right. To thee have I been unjust from the day of thy birth. But stay thy wrath, for surely I will find a remedy, and thy wishes shall yet be accomplished. For thou shalt bear a letter unto the Shah, and when he shall have looked on thy face, he will be moved with compassion and cease to trouble thee. Then Zal kissed the ground before his father and craved the blessings of God upon his head. And Sam dictated a letter to the Shah, and he spoke therein of all he had done for Minukir, and how he had killed the dragon that had laid waste the land, how he had ever subdued the foes of Iran, and how the frontiers were enlarged by his hands. Yet now was he waxing old, and could no longer do doughty deeds. But a brave son was his, worthy and true, who would follow in his footsteps. Only his heart was devoured of love, and perchance he would die if his longing were unsatisfied. And therewith he commended to the wisdom of the Shah the affairs of Zal. When the letter was ended, Zal set forth with it unto the court, and the flower of his army went with him. But the fear of Minukir was great in Kabul, and Mirab pondered how he should quench the wrath of the King of Kings. And he spake to Sindukt and said, For that the king is angered against me because of thee and thy daughter, and because I cannot stand before him, I will lead Rodabeh unto his court and kill her before his eyes. Perchance his anger may be thus allayed. Sindukt listened to his words in silence, and when he had ended she cast about her for a plan, for she was quick of wit. And when she had found one she came again into the presence of Mirab, and she craved of him that he should give her the key of his treasury. For she said, This is not the hour to be straight-handed, suffer that I take what seemeth good unto me and go before Sam, it may be that I move him to spare the land. And Mirab agreed to her demand because of the fear that devoured him. Then Sindukt went out to the house of Sam, and she took with her 300,000 pieces of gold, and 60 horses caparisoned in silver, bearing 60 slaves that held cups filled to the brim with musk and camphor, and rubies, and turquoise, and precious stones of every kind. And there followed 200 dromedaries and 4 tall Indian elephants laden with carpets and brocades of Roum, and the train reached for 2 miles beyond the king's gates. Now when Sindukt was come to Seistan, she bade the guardians of the door say unto Sam that an envoy was come from Kabul bearing a message. And Sam granted an audience, and Sindukt was brought into his presence. Then she kissed the ground at his feet and called upon heaven to shower down blessings on his head. And when she had done so, she caused her gifts to be laid before Sam, and when Sam beheld these treasures, he marveled, and thought within himself, How cometh it that a woman is sent as envoy from a land that boasteth such riches? If I accept them the Shah will be angered, and if I refuse perchance Zal will reproach me that I rob him of his heritage. So he lifted his head and said, Let these treasures be given unto the treasurer of my son. When Sindukt beheld that her gifts were accepted, she rejoiced and raised her voice in speech. And she questioned Sam, saying, Tell me, I pray thee, what wrong have the people of Kabul done unto thee that thou wouldst destroy them? Then answered Sam the hero, Reply unto my questions and lie not. Art thou the slave or the wife of Mirab, and is it thy daughter whom Zal hath seen? If indeed it be so, tell me, I pray, of her beauty, that I may know if she be worthy of my son. Then Sindukt said, O Palaba, swear to me first a great oath that thou wilt spare my life and the lives of those dear unto me. And when I am assured of thy protection I will recount all that thou desirest. Then Sam took the hand of Sindukt, and he sware unto her a great oath, and gave her his word and his promise. And when she had heard it she was no longer afraid, and she told him all her secrets. And she said, I am of the race of Zohak, and wife unto the valiant Mirab, and mother of Rodabeh, who hath found favor in the eyes of thy son. And I am come to learn of thy desire, and who are thine enemies in Kabul. Destroy the wicked, and those who merit chastisement, but spare, I pray thee, the innocent, or thy deeds will change day into night. Then spake Sam, my oath is sacred, and if it cost my life, thou and thine and Kabul may rest assured that I will not harm them. And I desire that Zal should find a wife in Rodabeh, though she be of an alien race. And he told her how that he had written to the Shah a letter of supplication such as only one in grief could pen, and how Zal was absent with the message, and he craved her to tell him of Rodabeh. But Sindak replied, if the Pahlava of the world will make the hearts of his slaves rejoice, he will visit us and look with his own eyes upon our moon. And Sam smiled and said, rest content and deliver thine heart of cares, for all shall end according unto thy desires. When Sindak heard this, she bade him farewell and made all haste to return. And Sam loaded her with gifts and bade her depart in peace. And Sindak's face shone brightly, like unto the moon when she hath been eclipsed, and hope once more reigned in her breast. Now listen to what happened to Zal while these things were passing in Seistan. When he was come to the court of Menukir, he hastened into his presence, and kissed the ground at his feet, and lay prostrate before him in the dust. And when the Shah saw this, he was moved, and bade his servants raise Zal, and pour musk before him. Then Zal drew nigh unto the throne and gave to the king the letter written by Sam the son of Nuriman. And when Menukir had read it, he was grieved, and said, this letter, written by Sam thy father in his sorrow, hath awakened an old pain within me. But for the sake of my faithful servant I will do unto thee that which is thy desire. Yet I ask that thou abide with me a little while, that I may seek counsel about thee. Then the cooks brought forth a table of gold, and Zal was seated beside the Shah and all the nobles according to their rank, and they ate flesh and drank wine together. Then when the mantle of night was fallen over the earth, Zal sprang upon his steed and scoured the land in the unrest of his spirit, for his heart was full of thoughts and his mouth of words. But when morning was come, he presented himself before the Shah in audience. And his speech and mien found favor in the eyes of the Shah, and he called unto him his wise men and bade them question the stars of this matter. 3 days and 3 nights did the Mu'abids search the heavens without ceasing, and on the 4th they came before the Shah and spake. And they said unto him, Hail to thee, hero of the golden girdle, for we bring unto thee glad tidings. The son of Sam and the daughter of Merab shall be a glorious pair, and from their union shall spring a son like to a war elephant, and he shall subdue all men by his sword and raise the glory of Iran even unto the skies. And he shall uproot the wicked from the earth so that there shall be no room for them. Sexers and Mazandaran shall feel the weight of his mace, and he shall bring much woe upon Turin, but Iran shall be loaded with prosperity at his hands. And he will give back sleep to the unhappy, and close the doors of discord, and bar the paths of wrongdoing. The kingdom will rejoice while he lives, and Iran will grave his name upon their seals. When the Shah had heard this, he charged the Mu'abids that they keep secret that which they had revealed unto him. And he called for Zal that he might question him and test his wisdom. And the wise men and the Mu'abids were seated in a circle, and they put these questions to the son of Sam. And the first opened his mouth and said, 12 trees, well grown and green, fair and lofty, have I seen, each has sprung with vigorous sprout, sending 30 branches out, wax no more, nor wane, they can in the kingdom of Iran. And Zal pondered a while and then answered and said, 12 moons in the year, and each I praise as a new-made king on a new throne's blaze, each comes to an end in 30 days. Then the second Mu'abid questioned him and said, Thou whose head is high in air, read me now of coursers twain, both are noble, swift to speed, black as storms in the night, one steed, the other crystal, white and fair, they race forever and haste in vain, towards a goal they never gain. And Zal thought again yet a while and answered, 2 shining horses, one black, one white, that run forever in rapid flight, the one is the day, the other the night, that count the throbs of the heavens' height, like the hunted prey from the following chase they flee, yet neither wins the race. Then the third Mu'abid questioned him and said, 30 nights before the king pass along. Regard the thing closely, one is gone. Again look, the 30 are in train. And Zal answered and spake, 30 nights of whom the train is full, then fails, then fills again. No, each moon is reckoned thus, so willed by God who governs us, and thy word is true of the faint moon's wane, now failing in darkness, now shining plain. Then the fourth Mu'abid questioned him and said, See a green garden full of springs, a strong man with a sickle keen enters, and reaps both dry and green, no word thine utmost anguish rings. And Zal bethought him and replied, Thy word was of a garden green, a reaper with a sickle keen, who cuts alike the fresh and the dry, nor heedeth prayer nor any cry. Time is the reaper, we the grass, pity nor fear his spirit has, but old and young he reaps alike. No rank can stay his sickle's strike, no love, but he will leave it lorn, for to this end all men are born. Birth opes to all the gate of life, death shuts it down on love and strife, and fate, that counts the breath of man, measures to each a reckoned span. Then the fifth Mu'abid questioned him and said, Look how two lofty cypresses spring up, like reeds, from stormy seas, there builds a bird his dwelling place, upon the one all night he stays, but swift, with the dawn, across he flies, the abandoned tree dries up and dies, while that whereon he sets his feet breathes odors out, surpassing sweet. The one is dead forever and the other lives and blooms alway. Then Zal yet again bethought him before he said, Hear of the sea-born cypresses, where builds a bird, and rests, and flees. From the ram to the scales the earth o'erpowers, shadows obscure of the night that lowers, but when the scales sign it must quit, darkness and gloom o'ermaster it, the sides of heaven thy fable shows whence grief to man or blessing flows, the sun like a bird flies to and fro, will with him bringing, but leaving woe. Then the sixth Mu'abid questioned him, and it was the last question that he asked, and he deemed it the hardest of all to answer. And all men hung upon his words and listened to the answer of Zal. And the Mu'abid said, Builded on a rock I found a town. Men left the gate and chose a thicket on the level ground. Soon their soaring mansions rose lifting roofs that reached the moon, some men slaves, some kings, became, of their earlier city soon the memory died in all. Its name none breathed. But hark! An earthquake, down, lost in the chasm lies the land now long they for their rock-built town, enduring things they understand. Seek in thy soul the truth of this before kings proclaim, I was, if rightly thou the riddle read, black earth to musk thou hast changed indeed. And Zal pondered this riddle but a little while, and then opened his mouth and said the eternal, final world is shown by image of a rock-built town, the thicket is our passing life, a place of pleasure and of pain, a world of dreams and eager strife, a time for labor and loss and gain, this counts thy heartbeats, at its will prolongs their pulse or makes it still. But winds and earthquake rouse, a cry goes up of bitterness and woe, now we must leave our homes below and climb the rocky fastness high. Another reaps our fruit of pain, that yet to another leaves his gain, so was it must so remain. Well for us if our name endure, though we shall pass, beloved and pure, for all the evil man hath done, stalks, when he dies, in the sight of the sun, when dust is strown on breast and head, then desolation reigns with dread. When Zal had spoken thus the Shah was glad, and in the assembly were amazed, and lauded the son of Sam. And the king bade a great banquet be prepared, and they drank wine until the world was darkened, and the heads of the drinkers were troubled. Then when morn was come Zal prayed that the Shah would dismiss him. But Menukir said, Not so, abide with me yet another day, and he bade the drums be beaten to call together his heroes, for he desired to test Zal also in feats of strength. And the Shah sat upon the roof of his house and looked down upon the games, and he beheld Zal, the son of Sam, do mighty deeds of prowess. With his arrow did he shoot farther and straighter than the rest, and with his spear he pierced all shields, and in wrestling he overcame the strongest who had never known defeat. When the nobles beheld these doughty deeds they shouted and clapped their hands, and Menukir loaded Zal with gifts. Then he prepared a reply unto the letter of Sam. And he wrote, O my Pahlava, hero of great renown, I have listened to thy desires, and I have beheld the youth who is worthy to be thy son. And he hath found favor in my sight, and I send him back to thee satisfied. May his enemies be impotent to harm him. Then when the Shah had given him leave to go, Zal set forth, and he bare his head high in the joy of his heart. And when he came before his father and gave to him the letter of the Shah, Sam was young again for happiness. Then the drums sounded the signal to depart, and the tents were prepared, and a messenger, mounted on a fleet dromedary, was sent unto Merab to tell him that Sam and Zal were setting forth for Kabul. And when Merab heard the tidings his fears were stilled, and he commanded that his army be clad in festal array. And silken standards of bright color decked the city, and the sounds of trumpets, harps, and cymbals filled the air. And Sindak told the glad tidings to Rodabeh, and they made ready the house like unto a paradise. Carpets broidered with gold and precious stones did they lay down upon its floors, and set forth thrones of ivory and rich carving. And the ground they watered with rose water and wine. Then when the guests were come near unto Kabul, Merab went forth to meet them, and he placed upon the head of Zal a crown of diamonds, and they came into the city in triumph. And all the people did homage before them, and Sindak met them at the doors of the king's house, and poured out musk and precious stones before them. Then Sam, when he had replied to their homage, smiled, and turned to Sindak and said, How much longer dost thou think to hide Rodabeh from our eyes? And Sindak said, What wilt thou give me to see the sun? Then Sam replied, All that thou wilt, even unto my slaves and my throne, will I give to thee. Then Sindak led him within the curtains, and when Sam beheld Rodabeh he was struck dumb with wonder, for her beauty exceeded dreams, and he knew not how he could find words to praise her. Then he asked of Merab that he would give unto him her hand, and they concluded an alliance according to custom and the law. And the lovers were seated upon a throne, and Merab read out the list of the gifts, and it was so long the ear did not suffice to hear them. Then they repaired unto the banquet, and they feasted 7 days without ceasing. And when a month had passed Sam went back to Seistan, and Zal and Rodabeh followed after him. And speedily did he set forth again to battle, and left the kingdom in the hands of his son, and Zal administered it with wisdom and judgment. And Rodabeh sat beside him on the throne, and he placed a crown of gold upon her head.